Hello and welcome back to Philosophical Laugh Lines. I forgot the name for a second. First of all, if you hear any background noise, which I'm sure you do right now, I am on a sailboat crossing the Pacific right now, so you might hear water, you will hear creaking. Yeah, of the lines and of the ropes and everything like that. So sorry about that, but thank you for listening through it. This poem is a recent poem because, we're working through it all right now. It's called Desire. Actually, it's not a poem, it's more like prose. I want to wear my desire like an open wound. I want to let it flow like a waterfall, unashamed of its power. I want to be so bare, so raw. It feels like you have to squint to take it all in. I want to feel it drip off of me, so honest. You can't decide whether to feel honor or horror. I want to embody the snake consuming itself, a never-ending cycle of life growing beyond its means, only to collapse, crunch into its next chapter. This life force, this desire, I will always surrender to. This consciousness, this identity, seems to drive it all forward. There's a swirling inferno inside me, and I cannot apologize it smaller anymore. I won't. So I'm going through an expected, desired change while also going through an unexpected, desired change. An expected, desired changes and an unexpected, undesired change. There it is, we figured it out. And so I'm processing all of the things, and also in my life in general, I'm trying to work on trusting myself more and not minimizing my needs or my wants, or making myself small. Yeah. Trusting myself over making myself small. Yeah, I'm trying to trust my point of view, my perspective more. Because for so much of my life, I've always worried that I'm crazy. And so then that automatically depletes the validity of a perspective if you're constantly worrying that it's crazy. And so I'm going through all of the grief process, or thinking it through. I'll need to remember to integrate this, but I'm really good at thinking through my feelings. And thinking through all the grief process. And part of myself wants to... I'm sitting on a beach in the Galapagos, and there's a consistently barking sea lion, if that's heard right now. And then there's a baby chiming in every so often. God, they're like dogs. But I keep thinking, or my first instinct is to tell someone else every single detail of what happened, to just I feel get the permission to feel how I feel how I already feel, but I'm not allowing myself to feel. But I don't want to do that. But also, I know that I think I have issue, or I struggle or yeah, I struggle with hyper independence, or I'm rather gifted in isolating myself. And so, yeah, I mean, we can see how those are in contrast, are in conflict, or also feel like two sides of the same coin. I think I also try to judge my feelings. Yeah, I try to understand them rather than feel them. I don't trust my feelings. I don't trust my emotions. I don't trust myself. Because I fear I'm too much. I'm always trying to minimize. So when I feel big, I don't trust it. I try to find any other reason. I try to find fault in me for my emotions, when really they just are. I'm thinking about how last year when I met my beautiful, wonderful friend that I'm traveling with now, I was processing, as I always am. I told her that I think that when I furrow my brow, I'm not accepting something in the situation. And so she started to, when I would do that, she would ask me. And before I just thought it was my thinking face, but I was making it constantly. And I guess, yeah, I was thinking constantly, but it's like that gets to the point of being unnecessary. Like, just be, please. But now I think it's when I'm not accepting my emotions, I'm trying to understand them rather than feel them. I really hope I'm going the right way. I mean, there's one road on this island, so I would assume I am. Also, so funny that it happened on the new moon. That's like starting eclipse season, and also at the second new moon of August, which means it's a dark moon. I didn't know that was a thing, and I still don't actually know what that means. And also that it happened this week, because a journey always finishes this week, is accomplished this week, reaches its fruition this week. Oh, the times they are changing. Oh, someone's on a tour. That makes sense. Oh, God. The way they walk is so funny. And there's this one massive Big Daddy guy. Keeps everybody else in line. The sea lions. God, I feel like everything is just up for questioning right now. Like every part of myself is up for questioning right now, because it feels like such a strong season of change. And like everything feels like it's moving, everything feels like it's shifting, and there's this pressure to move on from this last phase, but I feel like I still don't know what I'm moving towards. My mom asked me yesterday if I was running away from something or running towards something. And I feel like I'm running towards Australia, because that's always felt like it's going to be a thing for me. My first journey in Australia. Because I've always met so many people from there and got along with them really well. And I keep trying to put everything in a place of right or wrong. But it also feels like it's coming from a place of, do I want to represent that or do I don't? Do I want that to be a part of who I am or not? But it's so much pressure to put on everything. And in such a great time of my life, I feel like, what if I could just let everything just be? God, last year felt more of a beginning than this year. Thinking about how I'm in a 1 year at the beginning of a new cycle, and last year was the end of the last one. Oh, I feel like last year showed me the dreams that I would be dreaming for, and then this year is like, oh fuck, how do we do that? The last time I was in a one cycle, I think, was in 2015. Let me check. No, 2016. So that would have been my. Yeah, I mean, freshman year wasn't easy. 2016, freshman to sophomore year. Oh, is that when? Oh, that summer was really nice, though. Oh, my dad felt really heavy that year as well. Which that was a lot more recent. 2016 would have been 4 years after he died, and now it's 13. And so that was when I was 20. That was when I was this one group of girls counselor we all got so close that summer. And I think I started planning for study abroad. Gosh, and with the Saturn return of it all, maybe I'm focusing too much on this, but like it feels big. Like I can feel the shit happening. But then I think, why is that a bad thing? Like I feel like I'm like stressing myself out with all this like hyperanalyzation and everything like that. But what if it was like, I feel like a lot of it could be the perspective that I'm putting on it. What is it always is. But I'm resisting something in myself. Oh, but I need a new way. What am I resisting? Well, I feel like it makes sense. Well, I'm trying to resist the old mindset of that if I have needs, I'm a burden. And that I have to do it all myself because that's the only way I'm valuable. Because I feel like that's what I've thought for a while. But of course we need people. Because we are people. Humans are community beings. What if everything just is and you can make a choice without owing anyone else a detailed explanation of why, because you did something wrong, because it feels like you making a choice is doing something wrong. The only place I can see, because I've talked about how like well, I went, okay, it's like two thoughts at once. Okay. So I was just gonna say, I always feel bad, like, complaining about my childhood, because it really wasn't that bad. Like, it feels like a normal childhood. But it obviously, everybody, like, the things that happen when you're a child greatly affect you because you are greatly impressionable because you're a child. And so it still affects you. But I was a fat kid and dieting from a very early age, like 10 years old. And thinking about how that kind of panic, because I could see that it extremely distressed my mom about something that I wanted. Because also at the same time I was, oh wow, okay. At the same time, or probably when I started overeating, was when I started being bullied in kindergarten. And then I think it got slightly better, but still, like, yeah. And probably kindergarten might have been when I started looking to food for comfort. And then around like third or fourth grade, well, and then, yeah, as time went on, that became the stressor. Because then my mom was stressed about it. And so then it was like coming at all sides. I was bullied at school for something I felt like I couldn't control, and eating made me feel good, and so I did that. And then it started my comfort thing. I had searched for comfort became the problem. Became another way I wasn't good enough to feel loved. Gosh, there are so many sea lions in my way for the way back. Wow, they're so elegant when they swim. Like, they look like dolphins, and then as soon as they get on land, they're like hot dogs with fins. Very muscular hot dogs with fins. But why didn't I ever feel like I could talk about my feelings? Well, maybe I didn't see it happen, because my mom isn't very emotional, and my dad was super emotional. And I don't remember what the response was to that. Like, the anger thing was scary, and that typically, yeah, it didn't go over well. And so it makes sense why I've never wanted to feel that in my life, but any kind of emotion. I feel like besides happiness, or like, I mean, I have felt like I was the emotional manager of my family for a lot of years. The emotional translator. And then when you're doing that for everyone else, there's no time for your opinion. Classic eldest daughter. And I have to go all the way around the globe, however many times, to allow myself to freely do what I want. To freely have wants. I wonder if the fact that maybe, yeah, I was keeping tabs on everyone's emotional spaces. And so then whenever my sister needed help, I would be like, no, you can do it yourself. I had to. Which so isn't fair to her. But also makes sense why I didn't feel like I had capacity. Because I was a child myself. I became everything I want, and I still don't feel good enough. People will climb Mount Everest and still not feel good enough. And when is enough enough? The capitalism, there's always more, there's always better. And it creates beautiful competition, but oh my gosh, the tide is far enough in now that the sea lions are getting swept away. So they all have to move. Oh, the way they waddle is so good. But things can be good enough. Like, when there are limits to exist in for a period of time. Nothing's impossible, but still, like, how much do we want? Actually, how much do we need, actually? Without all of the rules or expectations we place on ourselves. How much do we actually want? not what someone else is telling us we want. But then the question is, what do I want? But actually, I do feel like I know. And I have to pee. The captain and I have been having great philosophical, metaphysical conversations. Like this morning, he was talking about, he was a physicist. He's retired now, but he was talking about how he was involved in the creating of a robot, a vacuum robot, that they were trying to figure out how it would go, how to program it to go and plug itself in when the battery was getting low. And so you're figuring, and we were talking about consciousness and like, what is the deal with consciousness? Like, what is it, you know? And he was saying that people kind of put too much emphasis on it, or kind of let it confound them unnecessarily, confuse them unnecessarily. And he was saying with the robot, when they programmed it to go and plug itself in, when the battery was running low, creating that desire within something, creating desire, that's consciousness. Having a force in the direction of want, or having something to want, that's consciousness. And that made me think about the Duggars and the blanket training method of disciplining a child, and how that inherently teaches a human to distrust their desires, to fear their desires. And then that made me think about how already we are so scared of what we want, scared of getting what we want. Because as soon as we start getting what we want to start ruining it. Because there's all of these values that we place on ourselves, on if we're good enough to have what we want, on if what we want is good. And I'm reading this book on occultism and yogi philosophy, and they were talking about how God is in everything. Well, they were calling it the Absolute. The Absolute is omniscient, omnipresent, and all-powerful. I forget the word. There's one word for that, which starts with omni, but maybe it's omnipowerful. But thinking about how God is in everything, and how one of the things that a lot of people don't consider when thinking about this belief is that then God is in the things that we will mark with a moral value of bad. But also God exists in the things that we will mark with an inherent value of good. Obviously, we have more trouble with the bad. Oh, we're really rocking it. It is important that God is in everything. The Absolute is in everything. Even in the stuff that we consider bad. That feels important to me because it shows that these value systems are just made up. These value systems don't actually mean anything, and we can actually create our own values and decide for ourselves if what we want is good. Find the voice that is listening to the other voices in your head. Find the self that's hearing all of those voices. Identify with that voice. Ask questions of the other voices with that voice. And that will help you actually create your own value system. Or at least that's what I'm trying to do right now. And I haven't been through the suffering that others have been through. Thinking of extreme suffering of like genocide and war in general. But I do believe that life is full of mirrors, and you can see a lesson in a small scale, a lesson in your life reflected on the more global scale of things. And everything that's been morally stamped as bad in my life, all my experiences that at first run through or first glance felt bad, have led me to somewhere greater, have led me to something greater, have led me to a greater experience, have led me to a greater state of being, a truer state of being. And so that makes me believe in the higher purpose of it all, in the higher purpose of the suffering that tends to exist in a body. And this is not also to say that then this belief excuses suffering. I do wholeheartedly believe that it is our duty to care for our common man, so much so that we try to alleviate suffering wherever we can in this life and for the next generation. Going back to that, consciousness is having desire, thinking about when I want something, how I know I want something, how I know I'm excited about it is it kind of makes me feel horny or sexy, I guess is another way of putting it. Like completing that task, having that experience as part of my repertoire would make me feel sexy. I know I want it. I know I want to go after it. And that aliveness, that desire for something true, for something great, I feel like that feels like a God force to me. That feels like what people mean when they say everything is sex. I guess I just trust that force. And I wish more people would listen to that force within themselves. Listen, and I think that is inherent with intuition, or they are the same thing, I would say. And I also feel like, I think I've talked about this before, but thinking about how our desires, I think, are, when they're true, I think are kind of divinely placed. I believe in free will as much as I believe in fate. I believe we make choices but also when you're listening to your intuition and you're trusting that and you're choosing yourself, which is the same thing, I feel like that feels like divine guidance. And then when you follow that intuition and it turns out differently than you expected, you need to surrender to the experience and trust that it's still taking you where you need to go. Trust that it is still the experience that you signed up for. Trust that it is still the experience that is most necessary for you, that's leading you to your higher self, or to your truest self. Truest self, I like that. It can also just all mean nothing, but that sounds really boring. Sounds really boring to me. So I think I've thought for a lot of my life that something is wrong with me, and that's been coming up a lot more now that I have stopped using everything that I was previously using to self-soothe, i.e. I'm not smoking anything, and I'm trying not to people please or control the environment in order to control my mood. I control everybody else so that I can be okay, which has been the way that I've coped for most of my life. I'm realizing. And also, after, I'm just so much more sensitive now for all of those reasons, like not smoking cigarettes and not having my IUD and not smoking weed. And so I'm sensitive to everything, and also can't, I don't have any of my old coping mechanisms. So I've been having a hard time. And it's been the feeling that I am wrong, that I have done something wrong, that I can only do things wrong, and also just the idea of wrong and right within myself has been coming up a lot. And also thinking about that, I'm pretty sure the right and wrongness is purely based in whether or not it upsets somebody else. Because I obviously don't want to hurt people. Nobody does, I would say. Most people don't. 90% of people don't. But hurting, if you're constantly creating yourself based on not upsetting someone else, and this could be any extent of which you take it, I for a long time couldn't stand to disappoint anybody, and so then I constantly was disappointing myself, and that didn't feel good, I can tell you. But I coped with it a lot by smoking and people pleasing. And I'm also grateful to all of the experiences that I've had through using those things, in the same way that I'm grateful to food for getting me through all of the years that it did, because that was really my first coping mechanism, my first self-soothing tactic. And I feel like also really the idea of wrongness in my head, feels like just an idea of not being what society expects, not being what society has groomed you to be. I feel like the idea of wrongness is more so I could think about it as a way of being different. And that's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with being different than other people. Actually, if everybody was the same, that would be quite boring. It also feels like anytime, I don't know where this one came in, probably Catholicism. Every time I feel like I'm having a good time, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. Actually, I do feel like doing something wrong does feel like, or breaking the rules. I love breaking the rules. Ooh, maybe I need to start thinking about it that way. If who I am is not what society wants me to be, if who I am, I imagine, is quote-unquote wrong by society, and I love breaking the rules, then I can just be who I am and
break all the rules, all the imagined rules that I'm creating in my head. Of course, I know this, that I'm creating this narrative, but now I could change the narrative to one that is more supportive. Oh, I like that. I'll break all the rules. I'll be my most authentic self. You can't stop me. And I heard this phrase so many years ago. The only thing wrong with you is the idea that something's wrong with you. And I need to start remembering that again. And also, like, why do I merit suffering? Like, why do I feel like I have more value if I'm suffering? Well, seemingly, or it seems like, well, it seems like society doesn't really give that many messages of being happy is a good thing, even though they also say, like, I don't know, like how the marriage is described as the old ball and chain, and like imagining going to a 9 to 5, like, just like, oh yeah, you're supposed to hate your job, sort of thing. It's like, God, what happened to living? What happened to living? What happened to... Why can't we be happy? But that's also not to say, like, I do feel like there is merit in striving for something and pushing yourself past your comfort zone, but that doesn't mean that you need to torture yourself for every way that it seems like you fall outside of the lines of what is expected or admired in people. That's a really good tactic. I'm going to be in protest. I'm going to break all of the rules. I'm going to be so authentically myself. Or this is the idea, at least. We'll see if it works out. I really hope it does. I'm also really the only one that can make sure it does. I am going to be so myself that it is an act of protest. I'm going to be so comfortable in myself that it is an act of rebellion. I love to break the rules. Why not break all of the rules of everything I thought I had to be? But this also then demands the question, what do I want to be? Who do I want to be? What do I want to do? And I suppose also that's more of a... I feel like that's more of a day-to-day question. And I think also your desires can tell you a lot about who you are, what you want, what you're moving towards can also tell you about who you want to be, who you're moving into, what phase of life, what phase of self. Ooh, I like that. And when we're disconnected or fearful of our desires, we won't know what we want, and we'll just take what anybody is telling us that we want, that we should do, and we'll just be living unconsciously, playing out someone else's story. The best thing you can really be for anyone in your life is yourself. It helps us all get closer to ourselves. What do you want? Let's help each other find it. Yeah, so getting into all of the ways that I have
denied myself or avoided myself by avoiding my needs, trying to hide from everything I know I am, to be what I thought everybody wanted me to be what I assumed everyone wanted me to be. But that doesn't work, really. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope it helps set you free a little bit. And I hope, even if you don't know what you want, you feel like you can have it. So much love, always. From the middle of the Pacific.